Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. Welcome to our webinar today. My name is Ana Zeballos. I am coordinator of the Global Coalition for Social Protection Floors, and I'm very pleased to be moderating the first part of this webinar. And on behalf of the Working Group on Financing Social Protection of the Global Coalition for Social Protection Floors and the Inspire Network, we thank you very much for joining us today to discuss the UN Global Accelerator on Jobs and Social Protection for Just Transitions. The Global Coalition for Social Protection Floors has more than 130 members organizations from around the world, providing a space and platform for coalition members united by a common purpose of promoting the implementation and financing of rights-based social protection floors and systems and the extension of social protection to all. The Inspire Network is the international network for social protection rights. This thematic network, connected by WSM, organizes multi-stakeholder dynamics at national, continental, and international level. This webinar has two parts. In the first one, we will unpack the Global Accelerator, and in the second part, there will be an internal strategy and brainstorming session for CSOs and trade unions, but later Kun will tell us more about this second session. I am very pleased to welcome the panel of this first part of the webinar. Let me introduce the speakers. Our first speaker is Markus Kaltenborn. Markus is professor of public law at the University Bochum in Germany, and he is an individual member of the Global Coalition. Markus will share with us an overview of the Global Accelerator, its goals, actors, and its governance structure. And our final speaker is Valérie Schmitt. Valérie is Deputy Director of the Social Protection Department of the International Labour Organization and Coordinator of the Global Accelerator. Valérie will tell us about the national level processes, the current stage of implementation in the different countries, and the civil society organizations and trade unions' involvement at country level, including opportunities for participation. Welcome, Markus and Valérie. Thank you very much for joining us today. After these presentations, we have around 15 minutes for a Q&A. In the meantime, please feel free to write your questions and comment in the chat. In terms of housekeeping, let me tell you that the meeting is in English and there are simultaneous interpretation into French and Spanish. And to change your language preferences, you have to click on the global icon at the bottom of your screen on Zoom. This webinar is being recorded and only the first session will be online. I think that we can start now, and I want to welcome Markus. Markus, please go ahead. You have 15 minutes.
Okay, thank you, Anna. And Beatrice, you could maybe share the slide. I would, of course, also like to welcome all participants to this webinar and thank you all for your interest in this important topic. And now the next slide, please. Yes, as we all know, social protection is a human right. But what many do not know is that it is probably the most frequently violated human right worldwide each day. More than half of the world's population does not have access to at least one single social protection benefit. Only 2/3 are covered in the event of illness, and less than 1/3 of the world's population is entitled to social assistance benefits. This coverage gap is particularly serious in Africa. There only 17% have access to a social protection system. Overall, the world is therefore still very far from achieving one of the core goals of the 2030 Agenda, that is to provide all people with at least basic social protection. Next slide, please. One of the reasons for this large coverage gap is certainly the fact that social protection can be quite cost intensive. Not all countries are in a position to provide the necessary funding from their own resources to enable access to healthcare and other social services for all people in the country. According to the latest ILO figures of this year, the financing gap to achieve universal social protection in low-income countries accounts for 52.3% of the GDP annually. This amount is huge and cannot be shouldered by the governments alone. Therefore, solidarity-based international financing, which means official development assistance, becomes necessary to close these gaps. Next slide, please. 12 years ago, the UN Special Rapporteurs Olivier de Schutter and Magdalena Sepulveda proposed a global fund for social protection. Through this fund, the global community should make financial resources available to those countries that are unable to provide sufficient protection for their people on their own. So the idea was to use this financial instrument to eradicate extreme poverty worldwide. Later, de Schutter reiterated this proposal in a report to the Human Rights Council, and the UN Secretary General also took up this idea in the report, Our Common Agenda, which has been published in 2021. My colleagues and me in the Global Coalition for Social Protection Floors also promoted this idea of a global fund. And last but not least, we should also mention the ILO in this context. In 2021, at the International Labour Conference, the ILO has been asked to explore options for mobilizing international financing for social protection based on international solidarity and initiate and engage in discussions on concrete proposals for a new international financing mechanism, such as a global social protection fund, which could complement domestic resource mobilization efforts of countries. Meanwhile, the ILO has published a research report on this topic, which is called A Global Fund for Social Protection, Lessons from the Diverse Experiences of Global Health, Agriculture and Climate Funds. And you can find all the links to all these documents in my slide here, which will later be made available to you. Next slide, please. Today, there's still no global fund implemented, but civil society, of course, continues to call for one. However, another important initiative has now been launched at the UN level, the Global Accelerator on Jobs and Social Protection. Although the financial resources made available through it are still rather small, as a global coalition we support it because it is characterized by similar motives to the global fund idea. The Global Accelerator has been launched in 2021 by the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres as one of several initiatives that aim to accelerate progress towards the Sustainable Development Goals. One can say that it is something like a collective response to the UN system for addressing the challenges that threaten development progress in the world of work and social protection. The first aim is to support the creation of decent jobs, primarily in the green, digital, and care economies. Therefore, the whole name of the Global Accelerator, which sounds a little bit complicated, is Global Accelerator on Jobs and Social Protection for Just Transitions. And the second aim, which is interrelated with the labor market, but also goes far beyond it, the second aim is to extend social protection to the 4 billion people who are still excluded from any protection schemes. This is an attempt to achieve SDG 1.3, which aims to give all people access to at least the most basic level of social protection. The ILO and we in the Global Coalition call it the social protection floors. But what is most important behind this goal are a number of other major goals that social protection aims to achieve. The eradication of extreme poverty, the reduction of inequalities in national and international contexts, the improvement of gender equality, better health and food provision, and many more. The Global Accelerator is therefore indeed a very, very important initiative for the implementation of the 2030 Agenda, because it can have a very positive impact on so many SDGs. Next slide, please. If we take a look into the Global Accelerator implementation strategy, then we can see that this initiative operates through 3 complementary pillars. The pillar one is the in-country development and implementation of integrated or coordinated employment and social protection policies and strategies. The second pillar is the establishment of national financing frameworks and the mobilization of domestic and international resources to invest in universal social protection as well as in inclusive environment and gender-responsive employment interventions. And pillar three is the improvement of multilateral cooperation and coordination on jobs and social protection. This pillar shall include also international financial institutions because there is an urgent need to provide more coordinated support for the countries. Next slide, please. The Global Accelerator is a multi-stakeholder initiative, which means that a multitude of actors are involved. On the one hand, the governments of the countries which get technical and financial support for their social protection systems, the so-called pathfinder countries, but also social partners, international financial institutions, donors, UN organizations, and civil society. All these groups are represented in the so-called steering group at the global level, which will provide the strategic direction for all engagements on the Global Accelerator. The voting rights here are 5 votes for the pathfinder countries, among them 3 for the low-income countries and 2 for the middle-income countries, then 3 for the donors, 3 for the UN agencies, and one of these votes is for the permanent member, the ILO. Then another 1 vote for the IFIs, the international financial institutions, then 4 votes for the social partners and 2 for the civil society. And here it is important at least 1 of these 2 votes is for the Global South. An important body of the Global Accelerator is the Technical Support Facility, TSF, which is composed of a coordination team, a global or regional hub of experts, and country teams. This facility operates at the global, regional, and country level to facilitate and support the implementation of the Global Accelerator. It also enhances support when needed in UN country teams, and the TSF coordination team is the official secretariat of the steering group. And on the national level, we will have national steering committees. The national steering committees are composed of participating ministries, donors, social partners again, civil society, the UN resident coordinator, and participating UN agencies and development banks. These committees will be chaired by the lead ministry, and they will oversee the design of the national roadmap. Moreover, this committee will ensure synergy among the participating ministries, the donors, development banks, the UN agencies, the private sector, and social partners and civil society. And with regard to financing, a joint SDG fund window will organize funding rounds to kickstart joint UN programs in the pathfinder countries. Probably Valérie Schmitt will later tell you more about the financial aspects of the Global Accelerator. Next slide, please. Here you see a map, a global map of the so-called pathfinder countries, those countries which are already part of the Global Accelerator, and probably in the next future there will be some more countries. Here we have now Albania, Cabo Verde, Cambodia, Colombia, Indonesia, Malawi, Namibia, Nepal, Paraguay, the Philippines, Rwanda, Senegal, Uzbekistan, and Vietnam, which are already pathfinder countries, and we hope that some other countries will join this group later. And the last slide, please. Yeah, this last slide is on what we will probably discuss a little bit later more intensively, the CSO engagement, the civil society engagement. We will have, as I said, the possibility to participate in 2 of the bodies of the Global Accelerator. On the one hand, at the global level in the steering group, and at the national level in the national steering committees. Those who are interested in engagement at the global level they should at best, I think, join the global coalition or at least contact Anna. And I've put here her mail address in this slide. And with regard to the national level, I think we will later have to discuss this in this webinar, how to organize the representation of civil society. But I think both Anna and also the Secretariat of the Global Accelerator could be contacted if you are interested in participating in at the national level in the Global Accelerator proceedings. So, okay, thank you for your attention. And now I would like to ask Valérie to continue. Thank you.
Thank you, Markus. Thanks a lot. I mean, it was great for me to listen to you. It was very clear and yeah. So Anna, do you have my presentation or shall I share my screen? What do you prefer?
Beatrice will do it.
Okay,
yeah.
good.
So you can start. You have 10 minutes, okay?
Yeah, thank you. So yeah. Thanks. So you can go directly. It's not the last one. Sorry. This is not the last one. So I will share my screen maybe.
Okay.
Because I changed the presentation. Yeah. Yeah. All right. So I'm a bit confused now. Voilà. 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 This is the presentation. Thank you. So yes, so as Markus explained, the Global Accelerator was launched during the COVID-19 crisis as one of the UN measures to accelerate recovery. A little bit similar to this social protection floor initiative that was launched by the UNCEB in 2009. So it was launched in September 2021 by the SG to overcome the crisis. And little by little, it became even more relevant for the UN. It became one of the 6 UN transitions that are now promoted by the whole UN to accelerate the SDGs. So I don't know if you are familiar with the 6 transitions. So one of them is on jobs and social protection. So the Global Accelerator contributes to that one. Then there is another transition on energy, climate, education, agri-food systems, and digital. So the UN believes that by working on these 6 transitions, actually there will be a catalytic effect on all the SDGs. So the Global Accelerator really promotes social investments, so investments in social protection, decent employment, formalization, and really to try to put the social investment at the heart of the economic policy, with 2 objectives: to really overcome persistent challenges such as poverty, inequality, informality, lack of social protection, decent jobs gaps, as Markus explained, and also to facilitate the transformations of the economy, the demographic transition, the transformations related to climate change, and ensuring that these transformations that will happen in any case, but are just for the people. During last year, we were extremely active to ensure that the accelerator is endorsed at highest level by G20 leaders, G7 leaders. The EU conclusions on triple transition also make a clear reference to the Global Accelerator. And we were also very active in ensuring that Pathfinder countries understand the Global Accelerator and join the Global Accelerator. So we have today 16 countries who have joined. Joining the accelerator is not easy because we are asking for a high-level commitment from the head of government or from a coalition of ministers that include a Minister of Economy and Finance, in addition to the social ministries, labor, etc. In some cases, we also accept the planning ministry when it has this, like Bappenas in Indonesia, because it has convening power of other ministries. As Markus explained, there is a TSF, Technical Support Facility, that we are coordinating. We have now over 20 public development banks that have joined the initiative as part of a specific working group, which is under the umbrella of the Financing Commons Summit, the FIX, which includes 530 banks. So we are going to the FIX every year, and little by little we are having more space at the FIX. And I heard that the FIX Secretariat this year has asked for a wide survey. They're conducting a wide survey on social investment across all the banks of the FIX. So it means that this idea of the social investment agenda is gaining some momentum among the public development banks. There is a specific collaboration with the World Bank through a partnership that we call the MEGA. It has a very long name, but basically it's the Germany, as part of their priority on social protection, that have asked the ILO and the World Bank, and as a proxy to UN World Bank, to really develop a collaboration on the Global Accelerator and the Compass. So on both sides, we receive technical assistance resources, not much, but it's a good start to really join forces at country level, and little by little to build a narrative together, which we will try and try to influence, of course, each other. And so far we have 20 million in the bank mobilized for UN and World Bank support to the different countries. Next slide. Yeah. So this is the 3 pillars of action that Markus has explained. So I will not explain them again. I just wanted to emphasize this high-level commitment, which is super important, and you see why. Because we are working both on integrated national strategies and policies, which means ministries of labor, social welfare, sometimes ministry of agriculture, if really agri-food systems transformation is an entry point. It can be so different ministries. So it's very important that we have this capacity to have a whole of government approach. And of course, the second pillar on financing requires, of course, ministries of economy and finance to be either in the lead or co-lead. Otherwise, it will not work. So really to connect the policy with the financing, we all know from our development cooperation experience that many policies, strategies, laws are never implemented because there is no, the financing is not adequate. We have just issued the new financing gap estimates. This was this week, a launch at the Financing for Development. So in New York, we know that the financing gap for social protection are huge and are growing. So it's not, so this is really one of the transformative action of the Global Accelerator is really to link policy with financing. Okay, and what is interesting on this financing part, so I will put more focus on financing as Markus explained. So today we know that from the latest estimates, you can find this report on our website. The financing gap to achieve universal social protection equals 3.3% of GDP annually. This is an average across all low and middle income countries. Unfortunately, for low income countries, the financing gap is huge. I will let you discover it. And if you read the report, it's, yeah. So it means that without international solidarity, this is first element, and without a transformation of the way we see development, by putting more emphasis also on social development, we will never overcome this financing gap. So I think the Global Accelerator, as Markus said, provides, yeah, it's a tool, a mechanism, a toolbox, if you want, where we can do a lot together. It's quite flexible, and we can, first, the 3 pillars actually of the Global Accelerator contribute to reducing the financing gap. If you look at the policy pillar, here we are talking about integrated policy approaches, for instance, to overcome the question of informal economy by working on employment policy, skills development, enterprise development, social protection, tax policy, incentives, etc. So this type of integrated policy approach that can reduce informal economy, which means obviously more financing for social protection through the extension of social insurance, broadening the tax base. So this is one element that contributes to the financing. The financing pillar itself, of course, is about financing by putting the ministries of economy and finance as lead or co-lead of the global accelerator at country level, so fully on board. By working with the World Bank, by working with this PDB working group, linking also with existing funds, and this is also ideas that Markus Kaltenborn has put on the table. We have already collaboration. We start collaboration with Global Shield in Senegal, Loss and Damage Fund, Global Funds, etc. And then by promoting more ODA, but so this will be difficult, but in some countries, we see that ODA is coming for the Global Accelerator. For instance, Luxembourg in Senegal is extremely interested in investing in the Global Accelerator. Talking about debt swap, not only talking, but also having some action there. There are discussions on wealth tax. So with the GA, we really want to contribute not only to the discourse, but also to the action on this financing. And then, multilateral cooperation, obviously, by putting around the table. I mean, what we do at global level, at country level, complements each other. Putting around the table the public development banks helps, of course, at country level, our colleagues to contact them, etc. And this technical support facility, it's not a new idea. I think it's close to what we have tried to do as part of the flagship program that I'm leading at the ILO. It's also similar to this facility branch that Olivier de Schutter proposed in his first paper with Magdalena Sepulveda on the Global Fund. So the 16 countries that have already joined the initiative, there is a lot in Asia and Africa, 2 countries in Europe and Central Asia, Uzbekistan and Albania, and 2 countries in Latin America, but this is growing. It's interesting to see that we have low-income countries, middle-income countries. We have like a country like Indonesia that is really interested to really implement its development strategy or parts of it with the Global Accelerator. So what we ask countries to do is, after they have joined the initiative through this high-level commitment, is to draft this roadmap. So we have already 6 countries that have almost finalized their roadmaps. So it's Albania, Uzbekistan, Cambodia, Indonesia, Malawi, and Namibia. And we have preliminary ideas of roadmaps in other countries, such as Senegal and Rwanda, but there are also others. I'm not sharing everything here because otherwise it's too much. What is interesting to see is that in all the roadmaps, you have policy entry points. So, of course, they use the Global Accelerator to accelerate the extension of social protection or the development of social protection. Malawi has no proper social security scheme, for instance. There is no social security institution in Malawi. There is just cash transfers, but there is nothing based in law. So Malawi, of course, I mean, it's a great opportunity to be part of the Global Accelerator to build its system. But at the same time, the countries, they look at this transition, this transformation of their economy or the demographic changes, and therefore use the accelerator to make these transitions just by really implementing this idea of integrated policy approaches to facilitate this transformation. So again, Malawi, for instance, they had identified 3 transitions, but they will finally choose the agri-food system transitions or transformation as part of their first implementation step of the roadmap. It doesn't mean that they will not go to tourism and mining as they had foreseen. Another example, Albania, for instance, they are looking a lot at the care economy as both an enabler to a demographic shift, but also an area of creation of decent employment with social protection and therefore of formalization of the economy. So voila. So just to give you an idea a little bit of what is in these roadmaps, the roadmaps cannot be shared now, but the 6 countries that are most advanced, we will be able to share the roadmaps once they submit their UN joint programs, because we are asking them to give a finalized roadmap validated by the government at the moment of submission. And the moment of submission is the 10th of June. So it's soon. So we will have the roadmaps in June, maybe July maximum. And so we will be able to share them with you. This is just for you to have an idea of, for each country, what are the different policy areas and the different sectors that have been highlighted in these roadmaps. This is an important slide because since we will have roadmaps that go from care policy to tourism sector to whatever, it's super important to have a coherent framework so that we can have a coherent narrative on the impact of this global accelerator theory of change, which is about linking policies, creating a closer link with financing and multilateral cooperation to achieve better results through institution building, better results and impact on people. So the idea, what is going to be difficult, more difficult than ever, I think, because the accelerator is about, it's too many things at once, I would say. It can go in all directions. So we have developed a results framework that we want to impose a little bit on all the countries. Otherwise, we will never be able to tell a proper story on and to build evidence on what has worked, why, etc. So in the center, you can see the 5 pillars, if you want, of all the accelerator projects. So it's the 5 ingredients: no? Integrated policies, adequate and sustainable financing, institution building. Again, the example of Malawi is interesting. How can you integrate employment and social protection policies if you don't have a social security system? So institution building is key. And national ownership and consensus building is at the core, of course, as Markus said. It's really a democratic initiative where we have also civil society, workers and employers on board. National ownership also comes from the government. This is why we start by asking this high-level commitment. If there is no high-level commitment, we don't engage. And from the get-go, we need to build evidence with baselines, proper baseline. It's the first time in my life, actually, that we have the possibility to have primary research at country level, to develop the baselines and to see what has happened over time, how these integrated policies have functioned. Have they really removed people outside of brought people outside of the informal economy, contributed? What's going to happen, no? So I think we really need to build this evidence so that we have a proper narrative to convince more people, more countries, more donors, more financial partners, and also to expand the initiative to more countries. So the end results will be policy and institutional change. Of course, we believe in systems building that are sustainable based on social dialogue, etc. Improved financing, we want to reduce the financing gap. So this is another set of results. And ultimately, of course, impact on people. This is an important slide as well, because it shows you that from the get-go, when we support the development of these national roadmaps, which is the DNA of the GA at country level, we really try to involve civil society, workers and employers, in addition to all the other players. This is key, I think, to hold government accountable for their high-level commitments. So they give these high-level commitments. Are they going to implement it concretely? So CSOs have and trade unions have a role to play there. And also to ensure that the integrated policy approaches and financing reach those who are in need, and not only do play this watchdog, of course, role, but also contribute to ensuring that the policy integration and the financing reaches those in need. This is the contact persons at technical level. If you have activities in Cambodia, in Indonesia, in Rwanda, in Senegal, you have a contact person from the ILO that you can contact. They are aware that you're going to contact them. So this is super important. We have tried to reach out to our colleagues to know a bit more. Are they engaging with civil society? We received some responses from Uzbekistan, etc. But I think it's good if you contact them like that. They will be more aware that they also need to contact you, and sometimes they don't know who to contact. This is also a problem. As Markus was saying, we have a governance structure that is democratic within the GA, the Global Accelerator, thanks actually to Markus' advice as well, and to a long collaboration on, and with Nicolas Wiebe as well, what should be the structure of this governance structure. It was a bit of fight, and we had for I don't know how long it took, but at least 2-3 months, we developed the terms of reference of this governance structure, the steering group at global level. Some parts of the steering group, I will not name which ones, wanted more power than others. So it was a bit of, sometimes difficult discussions, but finally we came to an agreement, and the TORs of the Global Accelerator Steering Group are online if you want to have a look at them. And for the time being, Viego and Global Coalition, so Markus and Laura Alfers, are representing the civil society. Yes, in addition to the participating in the governance of the GA, through the USP 2030, we will launch a call so that civil society organization can also participate in the technical review of the UN joint programs that are now being developed. This will give you access actually to what the countries are doing, want to do, etc. So it might be interesting. For each UN proposal, we are looking for 3 reviewers, 2 from the UN and 1 from the civil society organizations or trade unions or employers organizations. So why not? If you have time to review these proposals and you are interested to know more, you could participate. And this will be decided. You need to contact the Global Coalition that will put your name on the list as part of USP 2030, because we have our General Assembly on the 7th of May. So it's the right time to give your name if you are interested. In addition to that, we are now preparing the project that will allow the technical support facility to function. As part of this technical support facility, we want to have a hub of experts. We realize that when the ILO is not lead in one of the countries, which is the case in Albania, for instance, it's other UN agencies that are lead. There is no social dialogue ongoing. So it is very important for us, through the technical support facility and this hub of experts, that we promote national social dialogue. So this will also be a stream of work. So it might be interesting for instance, some of your colleagues who are already at country level to be part of this stream of work.
Sorry, Valérie.
I'm done. I'm done.
Okay.
I'm done. This is just the dates. I think you can share them. We have we are developing the UN joint programs now. We will have this independent review. Please send your name if you're interested to Markus, Kaltenborn, to you, Anna, on the Global Coalition for transmission to USP 2030. The GA steering group will meet 3 times before the summer, mid-May to review the first batch of proposals, early July to review a second batch, and in between, after the ILC, so second half of June, we want to organize, and this is relevant for you, a 2 hours workshop on financing, where we will share the latest financing gap, the PDB working group, what we are doing with the World Bank, what we are doing with the Loss and Damage Fund, etc., etc., etc. So I think it will be also an interesting moment for you to participate. I stop here. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Markus and Valérie. This was very interesting. Thank you for sharing with us this information. Let me read one of the questions in the chat. It's from Ingo Hiller. Thanks for the presentations. The first question is, what's the difference between a steering group and national steering committee? The second one is, why difference between civil society and workers? And the third one is how to consolidate organization schemes from past experiences. And the last one is who is responsible for elaborate roadmaps in a country. And there's another question to Valérie from Bismo, Inspire Asia, based in Indonesia, but Finder's country should have high commitment to the GA goals, yet Cambodia had ILO CAS double footnote in 2023, ILO high-level mission to the Philippines on serious violations of workers' rights, and in Indonesia is in the shortlist against ILO C98 and are not willing to receive ILO technical assistant on labor law reform. How do you see these contradictions? Thank you. We have around, let's say, 5 minutes for this Q&A. So Markus and Valérie, please go on.
Maybe I can start with the first questions. Yeah, what are the differences between the steering group and the national steering groups? The steering group is, there's only one steering group at the global level. And at this global level, all these actors which I mentioned are represented. And this steering group at the global level meets, I think, 3 or 4 times in the year and tries to coordinate the activities of the whole global accelerator. And at each national level, at each Pathfinder country level, there will be a national steering group where also the ministries are active, the ministries on labor, on social protection, or maybe also other ministries which are active in this field, and of course the UN coordinator, the national coordinator will be there in this steering group, in this national steering group, and maybe also the national development banks, because financial resources, of course, are very important. So this is the difference between steering group on the one hand and the national steering groups, and civil society organizations and workers. Yes, workers, these are the social partners which the ILO mainly sees in the trade unions, and civil society organizations are, is the local population which is self-organized in NGOs and non-governmental organizations, or sometimes also in international non-governmental organizations. And hopefully we will find in each country platforms of civil society actors, so that there's already some coordination between the NGOs which are active in this field in social protection, but also in poverty reduction and related fields. This is the main difference between these two terms. And maybe now Valérie wants to answer some other questions.
Yeah, so who is responsible to elaborate the roadmap? You didn't answer that question, right, Markus? No. You did? No. Okay, so it's so at country level, the government is responsible for elaborating the roadmap, and within the government, we try to have one lead and one co-lead ministry. So it can be ministry, for instance, Indonesia, it's Bappenas, the Ministry of Planning. I don't think they have co-lead ministry in Indonesia. In other countries where it's finance and labor, we try to have both, so that the two aspects are taken into account. And ideally, I mean, we try to ensure that this happens. The government should involve trade unions, employers, and civil society organizations in this process. Your other questions on the the questions from Bismo, I don't know. I mean, we at the ILO, we continue to support the countries even if they are on these CAS violations, or when they have these cases. So I don't know how I can answer these questions. Yeah, thank you. but thanks for raising them. I will check also because I was not aware of all these cases. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Markus and Valérie. This was really interesting. We are now finishing this first session. And I will ask Koen to start with the second part of this webinar.